Hello, everybody. Welcome to Wednesday Night Warrior. I'm Spencer, host of Constructive Criticism and Limited Time Only, two podcasts about getting better at Magic the Gathering. Today, we're going away from how to improve in Magic. We're going away from the stuff that we usually talk about, deck techs, things like that. Looking at different things, and I want to actually talk about something that's been talked about a lot in the Magic community lately. From at least my Twitter feed is full of it. I get questions a lot from listeners of both the podcasts about, how is Wizards doing compared to the past? Like, how are standard numbers down, and things like that. And I want to address something. So, actually, I think that on the SEG circuit, standard numbers actually are down, which is interesting because I think that we might actually be in the best standard format of all time. So here's kind of what I want to talk about. When we look at this standard format, a lot of people see what's a two-deck format, basically. So what they see is a green-black Delirium and blue-white Flash format. And I've been saying for basically the entirety of the standard format since, testing for the Pro Tour, that's not what this is. That at the Pro Tour, the team that I'm on, Team Constructor Criticism, all of the players played... not all of them. Two of the players played Temur Aetherworks, and one of the players played Temur Emerge. And the reason that we were on Temur Aetherworks is, one, we actually didn't think that other people would find the deck good, because, before we introduced some of the stuff that we introduced, the deck was actually quite bad in testing. But what we found is, we could play things like Servant of the Conduit and Drowner of Hope to let us actually cast Ulamogs and things like that. And once we were able to cast our Eldrazi and, hold down the fort, the deck became very powerful. The other thing that we noticed is that Smuggler's Copter aggro decks were really good. We had black-red decks, which did well at the GP this weekend, things like that, different decks like that. We even tested some of the Mardu decks. We couldn't make the mana base work, but overall the decks seemed really powerful. And so what we had was a 4 or 5 deck format, where we believed some Emerge Fringe strategy, an aggro deck, we had Bant. We actually didn't have blue-white. We had basically blue-white with a Reflector Mage, Selfless Spirit, Avacyn deck, but we had green in it. And then we had Temur Aetherworks, and we had Grixis Control. So we had a lot of similar stuff to how the format actually is going to shape out. What has happened is green-black Delirium, came out and did well at the Pro Tour, and then blue-white Flash was the best performing deck at the Pro Tour, even though it didn't make a top 8. And what happened is those two decks have caught fire, and a lot of people are playing them. And on the SCG circuit, that's basically all that was being played. There was Mardu vehicles, and those two decks, for the most part, were basically it. Were red-white vehicles, depending on if they want to splash black or not. And that was all of the decks being played. And people were like, this format's dead. This is the worst standard format. And I have been playing none of those decks. I play a lot of black-green in my spare time because I like the deck. But I've been playing things like Aetherworks Marvel. I've tried Green Red Ramp. I believe in the aggro decks. I think that Mardu Vehicles is a good deck. And I just didn't believe in this 2-deck format. One, because I know that the Aetherworks Marvel decks can compete with these decks. I played Aetherworks Marvel at States and played against nothing but blue-white. People said that matchup's unwinnable. It's really not. In fact, Jabberwocky, over the last couple weeks, if you've been watching some other videos that we've done on the Constructive Criticism YouTube channel, we've been talking a lot about this green-red Aetherworks Marvel deck that Jabberwocky created. And at the SCG Open before the Invitational, one of the teams actually innovated and tried a black-green version of that deck. Not to much success. They had one top 25. But what happened is people were like, see, this deck, it still isn't good enough because, this one team failed with it. And that just wasn't true. The green-red Marvel deck, the Ishkana Delirium Marvel deck, has a very good blue-white matchup and a very good green-black matchup. But people really weren't willing to believe that. Even the commentators of the SCG Invitational were saying, you can't play this deck, it can't beat blue-white, literally at all. And it's actually one of its best matchups. because of that, there were other things that happened. So this weekend, the format blew up because people innovated. They went in with different decks to attack different parts of the metagame. And I kind of want to talk about like what a standard format wants and what it needs. First, I want to talk about this format. So right now in this format, we have mid-range, combo, tempo, aggro, control, and synergy decks. We have literally every archetype you could think of. We have Green-Black Delirium for mid-range. We have Aetherworks Marvel in the form of combo. We have Blue-White Flash in the form of tempo. I mean, it's a Reflector Mage Spellquiller deck. It's very much a tempo deck. We have Bardo Vehicles and Black-White Humans in the form of aggro. Black-White Humans being this new deck that came out of this weekend with tons of 1-drops. We have Blue-Red X control, whether it's Grixis, Jeskai, Blue-Red Dynavolt Tower. You know, there are lots of different types of ways to build control to really combat those Aetherworks Marvel decks and really get them, basically. We even saw some Eldrazi control with Ulamogs and Drowner of Hopes and Hedron Archives, and then tons of counterspells and removal. And then, like I said, we have the Panharmonicon deck, which is a synergy deck, really, but also has a combo finish to it if it needs to. The Aetherworks Marvel deck is a combo deck that can play a mid-range game, so kind of splitting hairs there, but you can kind of see how there's this huge burst in the metagame once we got out of the SCG circuit into GPs and allowed people to perform. Now, that being said, we did have a couple of GPs where Blue-White Flash did really, really well. And that's okay. That's because it was the best performing deck of the Pro Tour. You would expect after the Pro Tour that the best performing deck, people would pick it up, they would want to try it and play with it. But what happened is nothing changed at the SCGs. Nobody really brewed as much as they could have and really attacked the format in certain ways, but it was happening on Moto. So when we would look at Moto results versus SCG results, they would actually look a lot different. Green-Red Marvel was huge on Moto, and I believe that a lot of people were getting Panharmonicon lists from Moto also. And, you know, this just goes to show that you need to keep up on innovation. And it also goes to show how great the standard format really is. So what you might ask, like, what makes this standard format great? And there's a few different things that I really think happened in this standard format to push it above. I've been playing Magic since about Alara, and there's been some really good standard formats. Alara Zendikar was really good. Once Jace the Mind Sculptor got banned, Scar's Zendikar was really good. The Pod, Splinter Twin, Tempered Steel, that format was great. Once you know, the Squadron Hawk, I mean, there was even Caw-Blade in that format. Squadron Hawk, Caw-Blade without Stoneforge Mystic and Jace the Mind Sculptor was still a good deck. It actually won the tournament right after Jace the Mind Sculptor got banned, and that format was great. Then we have the Abzan Aggro, Abzan Control, Jeskai, you know, Dragons. Like, that format was also great. I thought that the most interesting format was probably like when you look at Mono Blue, Mono Black, Sphinx's Revelation, Green Red Devotion format. I thought that format was interesting. I don't know if it was great. Thoughtseize kind of put a hindrance on it. But we've had a lot of good formats. We've had a lot of bad ones too. But I don't think this format qualifies as a bad format. Actually, this might be the best standard format I've ever seen. And here's a few things that I really like about it. Rotating strategies. So before the Pro Tour, the first tournament, Red-White Vehicles and Aggro Deck won. This is common in Magic a lot. These aggro or mid-range aggro decks do really well the first week. Sometimes they're bigger aggro decks like this one. Sometimes they're really low to the ground to get under things and really punish people for trying different mana bases. But usually some kind of a deck like this can do well. The next tournament, we saw Aetherworks Marvel explode. And because of that, and that was at the Pro Tour, Control decks did really well at the Pro Tour. Not very many people played Control, but the ones who did, I mean, we had all Control finals with Grixis Control winning the tournament. And they just did really well at that tournament. Then, after that, we saw Blue-White Flash and Black-Green Delirium kind of start to explode. People now have just jammed those decks. And suddenly, when they started, you know, preparing for only each other and ignoring everything else, you saw Black-White Humans, Panharmonicon, Aetherworks Marvel all come out and just destroy the tournament. What we have here is a rotating format. So when these decks do well and they start to focus on each other decks can come in and beat them. That's good for the format. That means that you get rewarded for the right things. Being rewarded for the right things is awesome. If you get rewarded for the deck that you bring to the tournament, that's a better format than one where you don't, right? If you can just show up with whatever you own, that's good for a lot of people, but that's not good for the format. The other thing that this format has that's very interesting is eloquent and interesting gameplay. I think that the tension between Gideon and Avacyn and Ishkana and Grasp of Darkness and Emrakul, I think that's actually good for the format. A lot of people think it's bad, but when you actually look at it, it means that like there are foils to every strategy. That Mardu vehicles deck is really, really good against blue white in my testing. But it's not that great against Aetherwork. It's not that great against Black Green Delirium. It is pretty good against Aetherworks Marvel. And probably Panharmonicon. But it's probably not great against this new Black White Humans deck. I haven't tested it yet, but I would assume that deck gets under it with all of its 1-drops. And also the better mana base, right? And so these are good things. This means that depending on what shows up to the tournament, if you can guess that right, you can gain a huge advantage. And also, I think that we also can now say with really good confidence, if you paid attention this weekend, that we are not in a 2-deck format. We are in a deck where 1 week aggro can be good. Because of that, the next week midrange can be good. And if you attack correctly in the week that midrange is good and everybody gets on it, you can play something like combo or control to attack those midrange decks. It just depends on what's going on around you and what you can do to attack it. But in no world do I think that this format is bad. There's something for everybody. We talked about midrange, combo, tempo, control, aggro. If you want to play a deck in this format, there's something you might love. There was a comment on our Constructive Criticism Facebook group that talked about, well, there's not variants of midrange. And that's kind of true, but there have been like Bant decks that have done well. And if you really think about it, the Copter versus Gearhulk version of Black Green is not the same as the Noxious Gearhulk grind you out version of Black Green. There's an aggro version of the deck, similar to how there was an aggro version and a mid-range version of Abzan back in the day, and that format was also quite good. So I think there really is something for everybody. You just have to find it, do well with it, and then be willing to adjust your opinions and feelings on the metagame according to like what's doing well around you, and be ready to attack in a different way. So overall, I mean, what more could you ask than a format with 6 to 7 decks in Standard, covering across all the archetypes? What I really think that we can learn from this is that Magic players like to complain very early on in formats. People were already asking for the banning of Smuggler's Copter just because it put so many in the top 16 of the first tournament, whereas when you go to the Pro Tour, there was very little Smuggler's Copter decks doing amazing. You have to be willing to adjust according to what's around you, and not just be set in your ways just from one tournament result. So that's it for this week, guys. I hope that you guys all learned something. I hope you guys all try this Standard format, enjoy it. Pick one of these great decks, try it out. It really is a fun format, and it's probably the best that we'll ever have. I actually believe that. I don't think that you could ask for more in a Standard format, and I'm, for one, really enjoy it. And I know that the people around me who are willing to adjust to the metagame also have found great joy in it for being rewarded for the right things. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you guys all next time.